Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. It looks like numbers are still coming in. They're leveling off a little bit, but we'll, in light of time, it's 2:05 and we'll quickly get going. So again, for those of you that are just joining, my name is Ken Kettenbill, Vice Chancellor for External Relations, if you don't know who I am. We have about 550 people or so that have signed up to join us on this webinar. And it's really great to be doing this. A lot of the registration information was coming to me. I miss all of you. It's been a very crazy time the last 9 weeks or so. And I hope you're all doing well, both with your work life and with your personal life. It hasn't been a lot of fun for anyone, I don't believe. So we have 5 other speakers today. I'm going to serve as the moderator. We have Chancellor Domenico Grasso, Provost Sue Elcock, Jeff Evans, Vice Chancellor for Business Affairs, Laura Drabchek, who's the Emergency Management Director, and also Melissa Stone, who's the Vice Provost for Enrollment Management. So each of the presenters will have a brief presentation to share with you, all verbally. We don't have any slides, and then we will allow plenty of time for Q&A at the end. A couple thoughts on the Q&A. So a lot of you submitted questions in advance, and that was very helpful. It did a couple of things. It verified what we were going to share with you today, that we were on the right track. Most of the questions fell into 3 buckets. Obviously, the big one is what's going to happen in the fall. The second one, most popular question was, is campus going to be safe when I return, whenever that may be? And then we also received a lot of questions about strategic planning. So all of those issues and concerns are going to be addressed in the webinar today. And then there were a lot of other questions that didn't fall into those buckets. We're going to get to some of those if you submitted them. And then, of course, there's Q&A for when we're done that you can ask on this webinar. I do want to remind you all, too, that this is being recorded, and we are going to post the recording of this webinar as well as answers to all of the questions that were submitted that were not addressed in the webinar to the website shortly after. It takes about a week or less than a week to get everything processed and stood up. So that information is coming. If you do want to ask a question, if you look along the bottom of your webinar screen, there's a Q&A button. Just click on that, submit the question. When we're ready to go, I'll start going through those questions. Only I'll be able to see them. And then I will serve the question up to the appropriate presenter today. As you can imagine, there's probably more questions than answers, but we felt this was a good time to get the campus together to talk about planning and recovery modes and things that we've been working on for the last 9 weeks or so. So I wish we had answers to all the questions, but we don't. But we're going to try our best to answer everything that we can during this unprecedented time. So as I mentioned, it is great that you're with us today. We really appreciate it. And with this, I'm going to turn it over to Chancellor Domenico Grasso. Domenico.
Thanks very much, Ken. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone today in the midst of this COVID crisis, and to share with you what we've been doing and really what lies ahead. First, I'd like to express my deepest appreciation for everybody's work in transitioning to moving to a remote format this past semester. It was a lot of work. It involved a lot of transitions for people, both personally and professionally, and everybody worked splendidly together. I'd also like to thank our frontline employees, the police, and facilities for keeping our campus clean and safe while we're away and preparing it for our eventual return. I'd also like to thank my senior staff for countless hours in planning, direction, assessing our health and safety, and making sure that we are healthy and safe, and communications. They've been terrific to work with, and I really appreciate having such a terrific staff. I'd also like to thank the senior staff and many faculty members who decided to join the senior leadership in salary reductions. This was very generous of everyone to participate in this. Finally, I'd like to thank the faculty and staff for everything that you've been doing, juggling during this disruption to our personal and professional lives. As I mentioned earlier, this pandemic is causing us to do things in ways we never would have envisioned before. So I'd like to just give you a brief sense of what's been happening behind and in front of the scenes. First, I'd like to tell you about some of the meetings that inform a lot of our decision making. I'm a member of the university-wide COVID leadership group, and that meets 5 times a week with leadership from our campus, for myself representing our campus, Ann Arbor and Flint. I also participate in our standard executive officer meeting with President Schlissel, which meets once a week, and not surprisingly, a lot of that meeting is also devoted to COVID topics. Our Emergency Operations Center meets 3 times a week, and that's led by Laura Drabchek. We also meet as senior officers 3 times a week, and then we have a number of additional meetings, department meetings, college meetings, meetings with MASU, the Michigan Association of State Universities, Beaumont Hospital, Henry Ford, that inform a lot of our thinking and our decisions and our collaborations. We also work closely with Ken's team, where the provost and I send out weekly updates, written updates for all of you to keep abreast of what's happening. We're also very sensitive to our special student body, because our student body is heterogeneous and they come from varying means. We've helped our students with a Chromebook loaner program for students who did not have laptops. We have created an emergency relief fund that people have generously contributed to. And we've created parking lot Wi-Fi stations for those who don't have Wi-Fi at their homes. And we've also started to work with Henry Ford College, talking about sharing facilities and opportunities together. And this is a great outcome of this sad crisis that we're facing right now. As you know, UM-Dearborn is in Wayne County, one of the hot spots for coronavirus in the state and in the nation, and that poses additional challenges. And one of the challenges that all universities are facing is budgets. And our budget is going to be especially challenged this year, not unlike many of our sister schools in the state. Our budget is interesting because it depends only on 2 primary sources of income: our tuition and our appropriation. Some schools are fortunate to have significantly larger endowments that generate resources, or revenue generated by athletics, or a significant F&A return from research. And we don't have that here. So our budget is limited to 2 primary sources: tuition and appropriation. Both of those are going to be threatened this year. We're not quite sure how they are going to look when the fall arrives, but there's been there's talk about significant reductions in state appropriations, and we're hoping for modest impact to our net tuition revenue from student enrollment in the fall. Nonetheless, we've done a lot of modeling. Jeff Evans' team has worked very closely with Melissa's team to try to bracket what our budget's going to look like in the fall. And right now, our base budget looks like our baseline budget, which would be right in the middle of the conservative and optimistic estimates, is about a $4.6 million shortfall. If everything goes negative for us, if the state appropriation really is reduced significantly and students elect not to join us, or if we can only limit our tuition by a very small amount, we are facing a $20.2 million shortfall in the fall, and that could pose significant challenges for us. But in a very strange and forced way, this pandemic is giving us a chance to look at things with fresh eyes and a blank slate, and start thinking about how we can see the future for our campus. We've received many questions ahead of this, and one of the questions is about our strategic planning process. And while strategic planning has been put on pause for the time being, it does give us a chance to reassess and recalibrate where we are. Nonetheless, one of the things that has come out of strategic planning is a focus on urban futures. And this seems most appropriate even now. Yesterday, the New York Times editorial board published a piece called "The Cities We Need." And it talked about many of the things we've been talking about with regard to urban futures. So I think that from a strategic planning perspective, our focus on urban futures is still very valid, but there are so many other things that we will be revisiting in our strategic planning effort. Many of them will be very valid. Others we may need to tweak a little bit. Shortly, Provost Alcock will be talking about what the fall semester could look like. And I would just like you to consider this. Even though the fall may look different from what it has looked like in the past, we want to make sure that the education that we offer is of the highest quality and impactful and nothing short of what students expect from a Michigan degree. However, we may be doing things very differently than we've done in the past. This is really a unique opportunity for us to think differently and reimagine what an education at U of M-Dearborn can look like. We are fortunate in that we are the only fully commuter campus in the state of Michigan. We are the only campus that does not have its own residence hall. So we've been doing commuter-based education for over 60 years. We have a great deal of experience that we can build on. We don't have residence halls. We also don't have, as I mentioned earlier, a big time athletics program that we have to be concerned about. We don't have a large research enterprise. We don't have a lot of out-of-state students, and we don't have a lot of other entities that require large investments. So on one hand, we were not benefiting by the resources there, but at the same time, now that many of those are being hit, we don't have to worry about how that's going to impact our campus. We can focus on what we do well, which is educating a commuter population. As the provost shares the various planning scenarios, I'd like to ask you to think about how we can do what I am calling a great pivot. And that's not just adapting to the fall in this particular situation, but actually rethinking how we can seize this as an opportunity to think about the positioning of the university for the future, how we can improve student success, how we can blend remote and in-person learning to create a truly engaging education. U of M-Dearborn was founded as an innovative experiment to prepare students for practice. It's time for us to reinvent what that means in a different century. And as the fall approaches, we can also think about what this means with regard to carbon neutrality. If we are remote, we can reduce traffic, we can reduce carbon and energy, carbon emissions, energy consumption, parking issues, building utilization. We can really think about being much more efficient in how we deliver our education. And while there is a lot to think about with the fall semester coming up, I would like us to also think about, as we adjust things, what this will mean for us in a steady state well beyond the fall of 2020 and into 2021 and beyond that. I'm also working with the University COVID team to prepare for testing, monitoring, and contact tracing for the fall. And I also just want to note that many of you know that we have a very successful athletic program, and we're planning for a significantly altered athletics program for the fall as well. As I've often noted, our guiding principle is mission first, people always. So thank you very much for being flexible, collaborative, and caring in everything you do, but also for always being committed to our primary mission, which is student success. Thanks very much. And Ken, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Domenico. Next up is Laura Drabchuk. And Laura, you have been involved in a lot of the meetings that the Chancellor has talked about, primarily related to recovery, as well as what the campus will look like coming back to keep people safe. And a lot of those measures we've already have communicated to the campus regarding face masks and social distancing, but I'm going to turn it over to you now to talk a little bit about the colleagues that you've been involved with, the resources that you're using to make informed decisions, and how we're really going about this as a university-wide decision-making between Ann Arbor, Flint, the medical center, as well as Dearborn. So with that, Laura.
Great, thank you, Ken. I appreciate the opportunity. So enrollment management has a dual appointment to both Ann Arbor and Dearborn, and this has paved the path for collaboration across the university enterprise and provided the open exchange of information and ideas during this pandemic. This has allowed us to have direct access to the medical experts at U of M, like our Chief Health Officer, Dr. Milani, and Dr. Ernst, Executive Director of University Health Services. Very early on, both Dearborn and Ann Arbor activated our emergency operations centers, which met 7 days a week for many weeks. Currently, U of M Ann Arbor EOC meets daily, and as the Chancellor referenced, our Dearborn EOC is meeting 3 times a week. Information exchange during these EOC meetings is important and helps us gain an understanding of the science and data around COVID-19, which is what makes these relationships so invaluable. It's the science and data which drives informed decisions. We know more now about COVID-19 today than we did in January, but there is still so much more to learn. Therefore, it is imperative that we draw our information and data from multiple sources. Data is extremely important to determine trends, track the spread of COVID-19, and determine if non-pharmaceutical interventions are working. Non-pharmaceutical interventions are those like social distancing and wearing face coverings. Just 2 weeks ago, the Detroit-Wayne County area had the highest death rate in the country with the exception of New York. Today, we have dropped to 4th. So the data tells us that staying at home and utilizing these non-pharmaceutical interventions are working to flatten the curve by minimizing the spread and reducing the stress on our medical facilities. There is so much information out there. It is important to rely on trustworthy data that comes from reliable sources like our internal partners at Michigan Medicine and our external partners like Wayne County Public Health Department Medical Director, Region 2 South Healthcare Coalition, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, while using guidance from the Center for Disease Control and the World Health Organization. As public health guidance becomes available, it is reviewed, discussed, and implemented for our campus, and we revise our requirements as new guidance and information becomes available. As the Chancellor mentioned, Wayne County and Southeast Michigan, including Oakland and Macomb counties, have been hit the hardest in the state. This is another example of how data will drive decisions and discussions around our return. Our return will be slow and cautious as we look different when we return. Our human resources are our most valuable assets, and safety has been the top priority. The campus leadership has made the decision early to keep the campus safe by reducing the density of the campus population and moving to remote teaching and learning and working. This decision proved valuable by limiting the spread. Additionally, safety measures have been taken to protect those who still need to be on campus, like police and facilities personnel. The following measures have been taken in accordance with CDC and State of Michigan guidelines. Social distancing measures, monitoring for symptoms like cough and fever before reporting to work, reporting to your supervisor when you are ill, not reporting to work, and contacting occupational health services in Ann Arbor for instructions based on symptoms. Wearing a face covering when on campus, using the most current guidance on cleaning and disinfecting which has required collaboration among DPPS, facilities operations, and anyone coming to campus. Campus leaders canceled all in-person events through August 22nd, and this action will be revisited in late June for events after August 22nd. We have followed the governor's stay-at-home order. The current executive order keeps us at home through May 28th because in the state, we have not seen enough flattening of the curve for a long enough period of time. As we plan a return to work, there will be additional safety measures put in place. These additional measures are currently being developed and will be implemented when appropriate. As an example, as we plan for reopening our research labs, there will be one entrance for building access, symptom monitoring for lab and support employees, social distancing while in the lab and on campus, wearing of face coverings when on the campus, and reporting to your supervisor when you are ill. These additional areas begin to ramp up, existing safety measures will be evaluated and additional safety measures will be implemented as needed. We will need robust testing and contact tracing, as well as notification, and we will use quarantine and isolation as needed. It is unclear at this time who we will partner with for testing. We have been in communication with both Henry Ford Hospital Fairlane and Beaumont. At this time, neither Henry Ford or Beaumont, under the current situation, can commit to testing due to still limited testing supplies. This does not mean, though, in a month or two, the situation could not change. I have also had a conversation with UHS to seek guidance and determine if and how they may be able to assist. As guidelines are developed, they will be implemented as we begin to return to campus, whenever that may be. Emergency management is working in collaboration with and assisting groups across the campus with return plans. We have created 9 working task force. Those are academic planning, instructional labs, library, research labs, student experience, early childhood education, events, logistics and infrastructure, and lastly, business operations. The efforts by each task force will aid in discussions around return to work and support decisions. If the governor's stay-at-home order ends on May 28th, it does not mean we will return to campus on May 29th. Our return will be slow and steady. This is not a sprint, it is a marathon. We will monitor the health of our community as we bring things back. We will continue to interpret data along the way. We may pause to take a step back if the data indicates we need to do so. As human beings, we are resilient and great adapters. There is no playbook for this incident, and we are developing the playbook as new information becomes available. I ask as a community that we stay safe, stay strong, maintain our flexibility and our resiliency. We survived 9/11 and the changes that occurred after that tragedy, and we will do it again now and together. Thanks, Ken. Back to you.
Thank you, Laura. Well, the million-dollar question that people have on their minds is what's going to happen in the fall? And I'm seeing some of those questions pop up to me remotely or online right now. And then, as I mentioned, we received a lot. So, Sue, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. And then you're also going to address the research lab reopening schedule, what it may look like. I know Laura touched on what some of the safety procedures may be, but were a lot of faculty questions about when the labs could reopen and what we know today. So, Sue?
Hi there. Gee, thanks, Ken. Am I up? All right. Hi, everyone. It's good to have a chance to interact, and I want to thank you also for your fidelity and your flexibility through all this. Now, as the Chancellor said, we have here an opportunity to reconceive how to deliver a Michigan education in a safe environment with no compromise of quality. In whatever modality we operate, we have to continue to give of our best and to find ways to promote positive student engagement with an ongoing commitment to diversity and inclusion, and we can do this. All wings of the Provost's office have been extremely busy, and I just did want to give a big shout out to everyone from academic affairs to enrollment management, from institutional research to student affairs, as well as the Office of Research. Yeah, I gather that there have been lots of questions related to the research enterprise. You all want to get back to your labs as soon as possible. I get it. So here's what we know and what we're doing in a nutshell. Elu Murphy is working on a reopening plan in close collaboration with colleagues in Ann Arbor and Flint. A few just key points. We cannot open research labs until the governor provides her approval, though we may learn more before May 28th. Once we're permitted to ramp up research labs, it's going to take time to reopen them. So a little patience will be needed. Labs, as Laura said, will operate on the latest health and safety guidelines. And I can assure you that intensive collaborative planning is ongoing. Another absolute top priority right now, being led by my stalwart associate provosts, Lear and Mitch, and the deans, is the preparation of various academic scenarios for the fall, ones that could be implemented based on our latest public health information. So we're going to be strategizing and discussing these in more detail with faculty in the coming weeks, but I did just want to give you a quick sense of some of the primary options. I envisage us mixing and matching these depending on the course and what is best for faculty and student, while also, and this is important, allowing for the spatial and logistical complexities of bringing folks to campus in a safe, socially distanced way. So scenarios include first option, on-campus instruction for courses that are most effectively and optimally taught on site. This would include, for example, instructional labs, senior design sections, and other courses that require in-person teaching. Second would be hybrid modalities. For example, we can have a remote and campus hybrid in which much course content would be delivered remotely and asynchronously, but students could be brought also to campus periodically, say once a week or 3 times a term, for engaged experiential learning activities. Another hybrid could be fully remote with both synchronous, requiring days and times, and asynchronous online components. So an example of that would be a course that makes all the content available online, but meets synchronously on Zoom once a week for active learning purposes. And then, of course, there's continuing what we're currently doing, remote instruction with an expectation of asynchronicity. So 3 final points on all this. First, just again, any decisions and actions will be governed above all by the health and safety of our entire campus community. Second, each scenario is being designed to allow for a quick sort of pirouette, either to more on campus or more remote delivery based on the nature of the pandemic. And third, we are working flat out on this with the goal of giving everyone, faculty and staff and students, as much time as possible to understand the plan and to prepare. Again, we can do this and more soon. Alcock out and back to Ken.
Thank you, Sue. Next, we're going to turn it over to Melissa Stone. There's been a lot of work involving a lot of departments across campus, mine being one of them, to support the recruitment efforts this fall. As Domenico mentioned, that obviously tuition revenue is a very large part of our budget, and there's been a lot of hard work to pivot and do things differently as we hope to build a great class this late August, early September. So Melissa, if you wanted to share a little bit about what you're working on to keep the fall as secure as possible.
Sure, thank you, Ken. So, good afternoon. Can you see me? I am glad to get an opportunity to update you on all the hard work many individuals across campus have been doing around enrollment management. When I arrived on campus last fall, I made a commitment to work closely on aligning enrollment with revenue projections to support the campus planning efforts. Little did I know that a pandemic would make that significantly more challenging. But that being said, while there is an additional level of uncertainty, we are modeling multiple scenarios, as was mentioned before, to ensure we're positioned well to pivot as we solidify final enrollments for the fall. The good news is summer 2020, even in the continued remote learning environment, has strong enrollment and is trending higher than prior years. In regards to fall 2020, while I can't definitively tell you where we will land, I do want to provide a high-level update. In regards to our new freshmen or our FIDIACs, at this time, based on deposits and students who have indicated are likely to enroll, we are in line with our targets. With enhanced outreach and targeted communications, students are responding to our value proposition and possibly their inclination to stay closer to home. However, we recognize that there is still a greater risk that students could change their mind due to the pandemic and the uncertainty and economic disruptions related to the virus. Therefore, we are coordinating campus-wide on ways to engage with the students throughout the summer to ensure they stay connected and they are guided through what the fall may look like that you heard a little bit about earlier. In regards to our new transfers, we are down in applications year over year, but this is not unexpected as we could not engage with our students on our community college campuses as we would typically do in the spring. However, it's still early enough in the transfer recruitment cycle to bring these numbers back up, and admissions in the colleges are working collaboratively on some creative virtual engagement sessions. And our goal is to maintain similar enrollment as last year, but we will continue to monitor over the next couple of months. We are also monitoring the undergrad returning students. Looking year over year, registration is slightly down. However, there are focused outreach efforts in collaboration with the colleges to work with students who have not re-enrolled, to try to work with them to engage and re-enroll for the fall. On the graduate side, we're working really closely with the graduate office to model specific scenarios related to enrollment. With a high number of international students and students who receive employee tuition benefits, the graduate area does have a high volatility, and efforts are continuing to mitigate the risk of this population while ensuring that our financial models recognize this uncertainty. The last update I'd like to provide is in regards to how we're trying to help our students who are facing financial challenges in relation to the pandemic. A big thank you to any staff or faculty who may have contributed gifts and pledges to the Immediate Relief Fund. We were able to raise over $28,000 to help students in need to date. In addition to these funds, we've also received $3.5 million in CARES Act funding that our institution is able to allocate directly to students. The Financial Aid Office is working diligently evaluating daily requests for emergency funding. Students are eligible to receive funds to help with expenses such as technology needs, housing, food insecurity, and childcare caused by the pandemic. To date, we've given over the last few weeks $686,000 to 623 students, and we will continue to award these throughout the next academic year. Thank you so much for an opportunity to provide an update, and now I'll pass it back to Ken.
Thank you, Melissa. And just to note, one of the questions that we received in advance is campus community was wondering if we had any stories to share with students that maybe received some of these funds. And I just wanted to let that person know it was a great suggestion, and we will work on profiling some of those students once we get information. Just takes a little time for the awarding and the stories to be told, but we have that noted for future communication. So thank you for that. And last but not least, we're going to turn it over to Jeff Evans to address some of the budget situation that the Chancellor alluded to at the beginning of the webinar. So with that, Jeff.
Thanks, Ken. It's great to be with everyone virtually today, and I now will provide a few updates about our budget planning. Our fiscal year 21 budget planning approach has been strategic and quantitative, and in partnership with enrollment management and our senior leadership team. Before our current pandemic situation, we had begun our FY21 process with a zero-based budgeting focus, and this has helped significantly in our planning. Zero-based budgeting helps align spending with strategic goals, requires that we build our plan, ensuring to verify that all components of the budget are cost-effective and mission-critical, all the while looking to identify efficiencies. After this planning started, and when the current pandemic began in March, we were able to respond and take decisive actions to protect our finances and of course support our faculty and staff as they began to work remotely. We know that revenue uncertainties in Dearborn derive in large part from student enrollment behavior and potential budget shortfalls in state appropriations. So some of the actions we have taken, which are sometimes referred to as Tier 1, include the following: freezing of fiscal year 20 reserves in the colleges and the units, elimination of non-essential expenditures, a hiring freeze, a salary freeze, as Chancellor Grasso said, leadership salary reductions, and an implementation of a voluntary staff furlough program. As these actions were being taken, we continued our fiscal year 21 budget planning in strong partnership with our provost, our Vice Provost for Enrollment Management, our deans, vice chancellors, and their budget managers, and many others. Based on our current enrollment projections that have been referenced earlier, we are modeling undergraduate up slightly and graduate down significantly, with a significant risk for our international student population. And as Chancellor Grasso stated, our modeling ranges from a negative 4.6 million to a negative 20.2 million. Worth repeating, of significance right now is our state funding risk. In the coming weeks, we will continue our careful budget planning. We have a lot of work to do. We will need to continue Tier 1 expense reductions into our fiscal year 21 plan. And we know that fiscal year 21 will be challenging, and we need to continue our work through this summer, as we will present our budget to be approved by the Board of Regents at the June Regent meeting. Finally, as a leadership team, we want to thank everyone on campus for your fiscally responsive and strategic focus. We will, of course, continue to monitor our enrollment, state funding risks, and factor them into our planning and ability to pivot. Thank you, and I'll pass it back to you, Ken.
Thank you, Jeff. Just a reminder to the attendees on the webinar, a lot of you are doing it, you're submitting questions. So I'm going to go ahead and get going with the questions that we have received. Sue, the first one's going to be to you. This was another question that came up a lot in the advanced questions. So the question reads, assuming course assessment and content testing will continue to have a significant online component going forward, what administration initiatives and resources are being considered to address the increased academic integrity concerns arising from the remote learning portion of the winter 20 term?
Yeah, we called it cheating when I was coming up the pike. Yes, we did see a significant uptick in violations of academic integrity. So did most other institutions of higher education in the country, but that's no excuse. This is not acceptable, and we take it very seriously indeed. But nor is it an easy solve. So what are we doing? First and most important, the Hub for Teaching and Learning, digital education, and the college's digital education ambassadors are available to talk through what's really the only answer to this intractable problem. And that is for faculty to design new, alternative, or authentic kinds of assessment. Now, this is not just to prevent cheating, but more positively to develop more effective ways to assess student learning. There's lots of literature on this. There's lots of help out there. There's lots of information out there, and it is applicable to all fields of study. So please do talk to those folks. I will say that now I know some on campus favor it, but surveillance technology or e-proctoring is increasingly not perceived as the way forward for numerous reasons. Student stress, student distress, significant privacy concerns. And then there's the very fact that, we can't win. For every technology we try, sooner or later, it will be bypassed. The kids and their enablers, the CHEGs, they will be ahead of us. And this could turn assessment into kind of an arms race, suspicious us versus evasive them. And that's not the path we want. A second thing we will do is to build more education and reminders about academic integrity and our honors codes into our basic foundational student experiences. There are existing Canvas modules we can add to our courses. We can boost visibility and orientation in student programming. I'm happy to report Amy Finley, our Dean of Students, is going to be partnering with our new student government president, Mitchell Dobson-Green, to get our students, our best change agents involved and helping. I'd like to quote Mitchell, who I think is somewhere out there in the ether. Hey, Mitchell, he said, integrity is integral to lifelong success. And that's the lesson that we need to be sharing. Finally, I'll be sending out a faculty-wide email on all this very soon with more details. And this conversation, I very well know, will continue. So that's that.
Thank you, Sue.
Someone else can be on the hot seat now.
Well, you may still remain in it, maybe for you, maybe for another panelist. But one of the questions is it safe to assume that there will not be a total face-to-face teaching return in the fall, like what we had in February?
I think it is beyond highly unlikely And I think it would be tempting fate, but Laura, do you want to comment? Oop, we lose Laura?
Nope, I'm here, thank you. I think we have to, again, take a look at what the data provides and what the data tells us. And I think we've identified that we've been in the hotspot here in the state of Michigan and Wayne County and in the Detroit area. So I think we just want to proceed with caution and look at the data and continue to evaluate and make a very educated decision based on what science and the data tells us.
I guess what I would say as we plan the fall, I think it would be easier to, to come back to campus, to start big on campus and then have to pull out again. We don't want to have to do what we did in winter term. Anyone else want to comment on that one? So that's a bitter pill to swallow, I realize, but.
Mhm. All right, thank you, Sue. Jeff, a couple questions for you. With the budget range shortfall ranging from about 4.5 to 20 million, what percentage of the overall budget or overall operating budget is that? That's question number one.
So the 4.6 million represents approximately 3% of our general fund budget. And did you say tuition as well? Whether you said it or not, it represents about 3.5% of our tuition amount. As a reminder to the campus, about 82% of our revenue, our general fund revenue, comes from tuition. The 20.2 represents obviously a much bigger amount, probably about 12% of the general fund and about 15% of the tuition in the approximate ranges.
Okay, and then unrelated question, but a big, important question for many, the EOB construction. So everything was halted with one of the governor's executive orders. Construction has been allowed to start up again. I know it's slow to get ramped up, but any update on the revised schedule for the completion of the building?
Well, I do. As we all know, the construction stopped in mid-March because it had to, and it did restart very carefully on May 7th. First week was planning for safety and et cetera. We have a construction management firm that's responsible for safety at the work site, and they're called, the firm is Granger. They're outstanding. Granger, along with our facilities team and in partnership with Ann Arbor, are working to update the schedule. It's now supported by safety and social distancing. And with that, it's hard to do a thing called stacking trades where you have multiple trade groups in at once to get it done faster. So due to the delay we've already had in the new way of working, it's likely that opening will not be until winter 2021. However, that schedule is being updated and more info to be coming as we know more about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Another question about computer labs. Do we anticipate those being open in the fall? And maybe not just those, but those similar type of gathering spots and spaces that we have on campus. How could those look different? Maybe Laura, you're the best one to address this. You talked a little bit about additional safety precautions and procedures that would be put into place. So if you have any information you want to share on that topic.
Sure, I think we would have to evaluate and we could possibly open those safely. We would want to make sure that we're maintaining social distancing, potentially even masking, and then ensuring that surfaces are maintained in a clean and appropriate manner, and that folks are, disinfecting their own workspaces before and after they leave. So, there's a possibility that we could definitely return and have some computer labs open and do it in a very safe manner.
Laura, is masking when you put the barriers between things?
I would refer to that more as shielding. Masking would be the face coverings.
Oh, masking. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
Another question here related to events. Can you please explain what you mean by all events being canceled through August 22? Does that include meetings with research teams or large events? Do you have any idea when research teams might be able to meet?
Well, I think these are events on campus events just to maintain low density on campus and social distancing. I mean, I'm sure people I'm in meetings all day, every day. So meetings are not my problem. But that's, that's a good question. Chancellor Grasso, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think with regard to research meetings, I can't imagine why there would be a reason to have face-to-face research meetings. So I think to the provost's point, I think we can have research meetings virtually all the time. In terms of the meetings that are canceled on campus, we're talking about camps or other events that were pre-scheduled. But when we do come back to campus, we're going to try to minimize any meetings that are in large number or are close together. We've got to make sure that we have socially distancing and that we're trying to prevent any rebound effect here, which, if you are reading the news, is already starting to appear in Germany and in South Korea. So we want to make sure that we don't overstep our success.
Thank you. We are getting quite a few questions about how to determine which classes might meet in person and remotely. And so, Sue, I think this is correct. I know your team is going to be working with faculty and a lot of engagement over the next coming weeks. And so we'll have, your office will have more information on that in the coming weeks.
Yes, I want to assure the faculty that there will be consultation. We're trying to make a sort of a big triage up front, not least because I think we have to figure out, what really does have to come back to campus in an agreed upon, everyone would accept that way, and figure out how we're going to do that logistically and spatially. I think, the complexities of it are going to be great. Entrance into buildings, changing between, class times, all of these, bathrooms, stairwells, elevators. There's going to be a lot of pieces to figure out. So I think we will start with the things that really have to come to campus and then add in as much as we can after that. It may be that, faculty do want certain modalities and rates of exchange on campus that we may not be able to, I'll just be honest, we'll do our best, but I think we have, if it's safety first, then I think we have to sort of plan things very, very carefully. But, we will be reaching out to the faculty for preferences and see what we can do. And I do appreciate you all have to prepare courses. So I'm very sympathetic to that, and we will get you information as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you, Sue. Question about how is wearing masks and other safety measures on campus, how are they going to be enforced? I know that unfortunately we've seen in the Southeast Michigan, a lot of enforcement of those types of safety procedures have resulted in violence and confrontations at stores and things like that. So Jeff, maybe, I don't know if it's you or Laura, about what is our policing model for that?
Well, we've talked about this in some of our EOC meetings. We know the culture has changed. If you've ventured out to Myers or Costco safely, we are going to be focusing on education and communication first and foremost. And knowing that we've made it a requirement to wear a mask, we hope that the education and communication will drive the compliance, and we won't have to intervene. Frankly, I think the biggest group is going to be our students coming back. The large number, and I think that's the group we're going to have to take a little bit more time on and work with our faculty, our deans, and our academic leaders, and how do we create a culture and an expectation that people are following the rules. Laura, do you have any other thoughts about that?
Jeff, I think that's correct. I think one of the things is the culture, but also remembering that we're wearing face coverings to protect others, not necessarily to protect ourselves. So it's a matter of, understanding our community and respect that we want to exhibit for each other while we're on the campus to protect each other so that we can continue with whether it's our research, our studies, or our day-to-day jobs.
Right. Good point.
Thank you. Definitely culture changing. Domenico, a question for you. Question is, what would you want to say to students and their families during this stressful time?
That's an excellent question. I do want to I've been reading some of the questions as well. And one of the questions was how are we going to compete against schools that are announcing that they're going to be face-to-face in the fall and that they're going essentially back to normal operation? And I think that even the schools that are announcing that, if you read the fine print, have alternatives for if they have rebounds. So the headline may read that they're going to be going back to campus, but the fine print is a little bit more nuanced. And what I'd like to say to the parents is that our primary concern is first health and safety of everybody on our campus. Very close behind that is to make sure that we offer the top best education that we can for our students, as we have always done. And what I am proud of is that we have a team of folks that work collaboratively and are creative in how they think things through. So I am fully confident that when the fall semester rolls around, we are going to be able to offer a very safe environment for our students, and one that's going to give them a top-notch education. And we're going to build on our history of having done that for many, many years. We don't have to adapt. This is in our DNA, and we are ready to take the next step.
Couple questions that came in about, are we going to provide protective face coverings for students when they return in the fall, and faculty and staff? I know we've been talking about that at the ELC, and I don't know if we have a firm answer, but maybe I just answered it.
What I'd like to say is, I think that there's going to be an expectation that we have face coverings. I think that I have not talked to the senior team about this. I would like to ask everybody to bring their own, but have face masks available for those who may have forgotten them, and make sure that we have sufficient coverings that everybody is safe. And just to go to what Jeff and Laura said, the face coverings are a sign of respect, that you respect and care for your coworkers, your students, your instructors, and that this is really what characterizes our campus, is this level of respect. So I do not think that we're going to have trouble getting people to wear the face mask, because I think we have a very respectful campus.
Another question, by what day will a decision be made for how we will proceed with fall classes? I know this question comes up frequently. When do we think we'll be able to announce the exact plan for fall?
I would say sometime in the coming weeks. Hopefully we will have some good ideas by the end of the month, but I think that we're going to try to fine tune them after we develop them, to make sure that they are resilient and robust, so that they can be adapted to whatever situations may present themselves.
Good. We have two more minutes. There's a question that came in advance that, Domenico, I'd like to put your way. And I really appreciated this question, actually. And I'm the moderator, so I got to pick. But this one, it says, in challenging times, we often focus on the negative, even when there are so many things in which to be thankful. Can you reflect on the efforts of our students, faculty, and staff during this challenging time, and what are you thankful for?
I am very thankful for the faculty, staff, and students that we have, and their perspective and their view of how we had to adapt. We did not get any pushback, any resistance. Everybody was pulling in the same direction, shoulder to shoulder, to move into a safe and different environment. And as we think about the future, I am still so proud of the fact that I am leading this institution, because the people I talk to and work with on a daily basis are they're just top notch. They're experts in their field. They're adaptive, they're collaborative. It's just a terrific group of people to work with. And our students have been very respectful. We've gotten many positive emails back about how they felt like they were being taken care of during this time. So I am delighted to work with such a great group of people. And I just want to say again, we are, again, incredibly fortunate for being the type of school that we are a commuter campus, and we should be very proud of that, because all the challenges that are being faced by these residential schools across the country, we don't have to face nearly as many as they do. We don't have to fill the residence halls. We don't have to worry about empty stadiums. We don't have to worry about plunging endowment revenue. So we've always been working at this pretty much at the same level that we're expected to work in the future. So that is a very fortunate set of circumstances for us.
Right.
Now, if I could just, a lot of those stories and things that Domenico talked about being prideful about, hopefully you're catching those stories in Reporter, on our social media channels. I mean, there's been a tremendous amount of great work from the faculty and the staff on how to adapt during this time. Our virtual commencement ceremony, if you're following us on Twitter, you're probably noticing a lot of quotes that the students submitted when they graduated. I'll be honest, we had about 1,100 students that were eligible to graduate, and I didn't know how many would actually take the time to put a profile up on our website, but it was about 600, more than half. And the quotes and the things that you're reading about them, they didn't give up, and they took all this with a grain of salt, and they were very appreciative for all of our efforts collectively across campus. So I think we should all pat ourselves on the back for what the last few weeks have been, well, more than a few weeks have been for all of us. So we're out of time. I know Domenico has a special message at the end, but I wanted to share, again, remind people, we are capturing all of the questions. Maria on my team is cutting and pasting those. We are going to put answers to a lot of these questions online. Some of them are very detailed in nature, so someone may reach out to you directly. Thank you for all of these. We really appreciate them. Also, thank you for all the IT support. There were a lot of people that you could not see behind the scenes that made sure we didn't fall on our face and your screens worked. I know some of you had some issues with passwords at the beginning, so I'm sorry about that, but the vast majority of people got in, which was excellent. And I know we're going to do this again. It's another way of touch points and communication. We do a lot of email and other communications there, but anyway, definitely more to come. This was very helpful. I enjoyed it. I was nervous. I didn't know how this was going to go off, but I think we did okay.
Weren't we all?
Yes. And all of you were nice with your questions. We appreciate it. And so with that, Domenico, I'll let you tell us what you want to tell us.
All I want to do is say thank you again for just being who you are, being the great colleagues that we get to come to work with, even virtually, every day. And I look forward to seeing you face to face again sometime soon. But until then, I just want to say,
Whoa!
let me see if I can get this.
You got it.
We got it. Looking good.
Go Dearborn.
Go Dearborn.
So you can do your face paint if you want.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Oh, I got permission to, oh.
Oh, we need to see it.
No, yeah, sorry, hang on. This is not going to make people happy, but hi. I have an old cheap computer, so anyway, all right. Well, if that doesn't make you turn your computer off, nothing will.
All right.
Thank you again. And
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone, for everything.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.